Predictive intelligence is like an ocean.
This is a total black box in the world of personal evolution.
For me, the most fascinating application of predictive intelligence as humans that we already do is knowing how something is going to compound and yield across time. The really humble people actually come across as arrogant many times.
Predictive intelligence of just knowing what are some of those missing capabilities that if you develop now is significantly going to help you pivot and create fascinating life experiences for you.
The good news is you might just be one capability away from getting to a whole new league.
Sarigamagari, pamagari, now pamagari, sarigamagari, nisa. The ANH Podcast.
Welcome back to ANH Podcast. In the last episode, Harini actually touched upon predictive intelligence, and I said we're going to do more about predictive intelligence in this episode. Harini, predictive intelligence is like an ocean, right? Because when people think about predictive intelligence, the first thing that most people think about is what computers do. Like Facebook can predict what ads you're likely to click. And there's very short-term predictive angle to the word predictive intelligence. When we talk about predictive intelligence, we actually refer to human predictive intelligence. And the context we talk about is, like let's say you're trying to catch a ball and the ball is coming at a particular speed and your hands are moving to catch the ball at a particular speed. The speed of the ball is not constant because there's wind that's like slowing it down, and there are muscles in your hands that are accelerating the movement. It's not a fixed speed. There's a continuous change of speed. Actually, mathematically, for you to precisely know, if you have to write a mathematical model of where the ball will reach and where your hand will go, to be exactly precise would require some form of calculus, and that's complex for most people because it's not like how we learn distance into time equal to speed and all those silly things and simple things that we learn when we were in school is a foundation, but it's much more complex than that. But none of us do complex mathematics to go and catch a ball.
Yeah.
It's instinctive.
So
it's intuitive. And that's an example of our predictive intelligence for short-term things. If you say this word, it's going to trigger that person. This is how you catch this ball. And when it comes to mechanical things, our prediction kind of is the same because every time you're just getting better at it because it doesn't change. But if you say this word, this person will get triggered. You don't know that. Maybe they got triggered 100 times. The next time they won't get triggered. But even in that case, it's a short-term thing. Do they get triggered or not? For me, the most fascinating application of predictive intelligence as humans that we already do is knowing how something is going to compound and yield across time. A lot of people think about, investment, and they think, if you invest this money, if it keeps compounding, and, if you have set it up in a way that it compounds in a particular rate, for example, at 15% every year, then maybe in 3 years, it'll double the amount of investment you put in. So it looks like you have some stuff here. It's giving you a yield, and this together gives you more yield, and that's called compounding. And what I find is that with humans, there are certain things that compounds much more faster, much more profitably than whatever we have seen in financial compounding. And we call these as capabilities. So when we talk about predictive intelligence, it's like really an ocean. Like human predictive intelligence is an ocean. What are you interested in today?
When we talk about human predictive intelligence, we talk about predicting capabilities. We're not foretellers, we're not fortune tellers, we're not predictions of astrology. That's not what we mean by predictive intelligence. When we say human predictive intelligence, we're referring to predicting what capabilities would be a game changer for any individual at any given point in time. Like if only they had this, and this set of capabilities, along with all of the functional domain knowledge that they already have, these capabilities can literally 10x the potential of what they can seize at that given point in time, because I think this is a total black box in the world of personal evolution for people, right? Like, people spend so much time, like, all through their school and college and the professional courses that they do, and undergrad, postgrad, everything is all about developing functional domain expertise.
I think if you have a 1 hour lunch break and if you take 1 hour to eat an apple, then all you can eat for lunch is an apple. And everybody is actually capable for the outcomes they are already creating. And maybe with a little bit of performance boost and coaching and guidance and strategy, they can maybe do 5x, 10x more. But I don't think they can go jump the league. I don't think they can jump the curve. I don't think they can do something beyond the ceiling that exists because of a lack of certain set of capabilities.
But should people even jump the curve, Antano? Like, why? Like, most people think I'm doing well, I'm doing fine, and maybe a little bit here and there, and I could be doing better. I think people are probably even afraid to dream or have big ambitions, fear of failure.
People don't jump the curve. What happens is they are either within the system or they're outside the system. So if you have, like, say, a manufacturer, and 50% of what they are manufacturing is faulty products. So now you would expect that the next product is either going to be faulty or not faulty, and that the product after that is going to be faulty if the previous product wasn't faulty, because that's a system. And now we have a system in the world that creates the outcome where more than 99% of people are compromising on their health or their business or their legacy or their impact or their relationships or their longevity. So it's predictable that the next million is going to compromise. And they might be average successful. They might have more money than their previous generation. They might make 10 times more money because success has become easy. But at what cost? In one of the previous episodes, we actually spoke about when you ask a group of people, how many of you here don't have any lifestyle medicine, you see less than 20% in any community, any place you go in the world. And people are compromising, and that is because they're in the system. Currently, either by design or by accident, somehow we are at the stage in the world where the product of the world is compromised life. So if you take the world as a system, the interconnectedness of all the countries and continents put together and the various authorities and functions put together as a system of systems, the outcome of that system is 99% of the people compromise. So they're either in the system or the rules of that system don't apply to them. They're above that system. They're not above the law, both of men and of the universe. If they jump from a building, they will fall down. They're still abiding to the same framework, the same law, but the constraint, the hold of the system doesn't apply to them.
So that's the greatest advantage of
Jumping the
the
curve.
curve,
Yes.
of pivoting fast enough,
Yes.
of growing faster in, would you say this has probably got to do something with acceleration?
Yeah, the analogy I have, so jump the curve means, you're growing, you can get double promotion, your salary can double. But can you ever be a billionaire? Now, I'm not saying everybody should be a billionaire. I'm just giving an example of what jump the curve means. Let's say someone is playing a sports. Now, they might be getting better and better, but they know in their heart they can never be the world champion or even in that league. At some point, they even accept that incremental growth is okay. They can't jump to the next league. So jump the league, jump the curve in this aspect requires immense personal evolution. And it starts by looking at what are you already capable of. There was an era where people are only focusing on their weakness, and I think that was really horrible. But then there came an era where people were focusing on their strengths. That's good. That's better than compared to, focusing on your weakness. So if you're like a loser focusing on weakness, you become an average focusing on your strengths because you're doing what you can. You might even become good. But you won't become an outlier if you stop by focusing only on your strengths. You become an outlier by focusing on your strengths to build newer strengths. So you go from strength to strength. You use your strengths to create the kind of experience, the kind of exposure that builds the strengths that you don't have right now. So you build one strength from another strength. You go from strength to strength. And when you do that, you become an outlier. When you become an outlier, when you become extraordinary, then you jump to a different league. And when you jump to a different league, the rules don't apply. The system doesn't apply to you. You're above the system.
Wow.
There are certain laws of gravity that applies to us. So that's why, I used to wonder because I always grew up near the ocean. And my father used to actually buy ships. We used to take ships out of deep water and sell them. And my house always has been in front of the beach. Like I can see the beach. And when I was a child, I used to wonder, what if these ships keep going like that and they fell off the earth? I mean, as a little kid, I used to wonder, like, what if these ships go? Because as a child, you're seeing in front of you, there's the sand, and you understand lines and borders and boundaries. So if you cross that line from road, you go to the sand. If you cross that line, you go to the water. So what is the next line? If you cross that, what happens? But ships don't fall off oceans because there is a particular law that they obey of gravity. So what happens is they keep circling the earth. They can never fall off. They can never tip off. But a rocket, if it crosses a particular speed, it can escape the earth's gravitational pull. It's called the escape velocity. So it has to go faster than a threshold. And I think threshold is a very important thing. It's not enough to be good. It is enough when you cross a threshold. And for everybody, there is a threshold. When they cross that, the rules change. And to cross that threshold, we need personal evolution. And we need strategic personal evolution because you can have so many things. Maybe just one small thing will power the entire system up. Might even, give you significantly higher return than what you get with your existing capabilities. And there are so many examples in the world where, something works, but you add one small little thing and it works like 5 times, 10 times better. And predictive intelligence is finding that thing. Predictive intelligence is not saying develop capabilities, life will change. I mean, that's a good strategy, that's a theory, and in most cases that's true, but anybody can say that. You don't need predictive intelligence for that. When I was a small boy, I heard about this analogy where someone told me, I think it was my aunt, she was talking about how there was a guy who was passing by and she saw a guy sitting on a tree and he was sitting and cutting a branch. And he was sitting on the branch that he was cutting, and he was sitting on the other side to the axe where he was cutting. So he was sitting on the part of the branch that would fall when he cuts. And the passerby said, don't cut this branch because you will fall down. And the guy said, just go, don't advise. And then the guy cuts and then he falls with the branch. And then he goes and asks this guy, how did you know I'm going to fall? Now, as silly as that sounds, to me, predictive intelligence is when, if for you, it is so obvious
Yeah.
that you're like, duh, if you just develop this ability, you're going to just go to a different league altogether because you have all the other stuff. And the reality is everybody has many things already in their life. I met a mother and she said, 10 years I've been just taking care of my child and, I didn't do any work because of that. I'm so out of touch with reality. I don't know what's going on. The world has advanced so much. I said the world is exactly where it is in terms of its intuition, whereas you have advanced far ahead because of the stuff that you have done with your children. I mean, she saw it from that perspective. She recognized the abundance of intuition she has, which her friends who did not have. So now from there you look at how do you complement that? What do you complete for her that gives her an unparalleled advantage? So the myth is that most people think, I don't have it. Or I have to start from scratch. Nobody's starting from scratch. Every time we met someone, they're always having a complete and almost complete set. But that's the key. There's a difference between a complete set and an almost complete set. You could have like the perfect car. You could have a Rolls Royce. But if you don't have one important component, it's not going to start. It's not going to drive. If you have an aeroplane that's broken, you can probably make a car with it. So you may have a complete kit for a car, but not a complete kit for a aeroplane. And that's what most people are doing. They have the complete kit to fly, the capabilities to fly, but one or two components are missing, one or two capabilities are missing. So now they're saying, okay, now they're doing within the kit that is available. They're like probably driving with those spare parts a car which should have actually been an aeroplane.
Wow. And this is the facet of predictive intelligence that I'm most fascinated by, because it's possible that every individual can create huge impact, can create big impact, can create legacy after legacy after legacy. But most people don't, because some sets of capabilities are incomplete and they don't know what the missing set is at any given point in time. And their attention is on the car that they're driving, and they barely have any time to even lift up and look at the sky and recognize that they can be that aeroplane or the rocket. And it's not
Or
really,
an omni vehicle that does all of it.
and it's really not that much effort, right? Like from an effort perspective.
If you have that predictive intelligence and if you know, oh, just this small thing, this is going to upgrade itself, then it's not a lot of effort. If you don't have it, then it's a trial and error, because capability building takes time. If you put 1 year to develop something,
Yeah.
and that doesn't complete that set for you, you don't have too many trial and errors. And that's another thing I would like to talk to the audience about in another episode. About capability development can happen in compressed time. It can happen sometimes in minutes, and we want to share some insights from our work on how to make that happen. If you have a predictive intelligence, even if you don't know how to time compress the capability development, you can invest 1 or 2 years if it completes your set of capabilities to give you like the next league of results across business, health, family, your personal genius, the impact you create, and your longevity.
And that is what I mean, for me, the greatest contribution of the work that we're doing with personal evolution science of excellence installation technology is filling in that missing piece that has literally been overlooked by everybody in
Absolutely.
the
There's
personal
no,
evolution space.
I think there is no precedence to science that develops intuition. And we are talking the intuition of the predictive intelligence required to know which little capability addition is going to be a game changer for that person. So we're not creating a format. We're not giving like an assessment and fill this and we would know.
Not a model either.
Yeah, it's not possible. And oh God, the number of people who try to simplify human capability development, because also the world is co-evolving. You cannot have a framework that is true today that is true tomorrow. Even between days, things change. But what I love about this, and I think I just realized it while we were speaking, is that we are personal evolution scientists, and our contribution is to develop the science that improves the intuition. So a person can have that predictive intelligence. So when they look at another person, or from a meta state their own life, they're like, oh, it's so obvious. That's the capability that's going to take all the things that I have, or all the things that person has, to a different league altogether.
And that's the fundamental predictive intelligence that we help our evolution artists build, right? Like,
Yes.
people from literally all over the world come to us
Yeah.
to develop this intuition.
And now this is the capability that an intuition that you're committing to help your audience build in this podcast. Honey, but I'm really curious. Like, it just occurred to me right now. On a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are you that, because I know the effort that goes into building predictive intelligence for our participants. They come to an event and they already come with a certain life experience, because we have filtering them. And then we also say, if you don't meet the life experience, maybe our launch a legacy program helps you get there first, and then they're already coming with certain life experience, and then there's this personal diagnostics and consultation. You're looking at them, and either us or one of the EIs, and they're looking at what specific personal evolution they need. We make that happen. We design field experiences. We give them and put them in front of people where they're doing different activities with them, evolving other people. There's so much to improve and accelerate someone's predictive intelligence. And when you think about that, on a scale of 0 to 10, how confident are you that the audience of this podcast are going to develop predictive intelligence?
If I mean, is it possible for somebody to like become a doctor by listening to a podcast? It isn't. But can they get insights and experience of see, because when for in the journey of becoming a doctor, a person goes into a hospital and it's like 5 years, and then they go to their masters and they're working with tons of people, and there's all of the knowledge and everything that they learn as the basics. And after that, they're literally interning or working with a senior doctor, and what they're actually picking up working with the senior doctor is the intuition. Why this decision now for this patient, and why not this decision? Why do this procedure and not this procedure? Because I mean, no two doctors treat a patient exactly the same, right? And there are extraordinary doctors, and there are okay doctors.
So you're saying this is not a college degree? You're not going to become a doctor? You're not going to become a doctor just by watching YouTube videos? So you're not going to become an evolution artist just by watching YouTube videos? Is that what you're saying?
But just by watching this podcast, you can't become a very reliably high degree of predictive intelligence and intuition that you can rely on and know for sure that it'll always happen. That I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what can happen instead when they watch this particular podcast is each one comes from a different life circumstance. Like today, as they're waking up, like if they have to just hit a pause button, or just this moment as they're watching us, there are a lot of things that are going on in their lives, in their personal lives, in their professional lives, in their organization, and in every episode, things that we talk about. What I'm absolutely confident about is it's going to give them a solution to something that they're working around in their lives at that point in time. And it's also going to sow the seeds for certain things that they've always been searching for answers to. They're probably going to find that in the week, in the days, months to go.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm absolutely confident about is out here learning that there is a way. We're not theorists. We're not psychologists. We're not talking like tiny degrees of success. Even even when you're dealing with a huge population. So everything that we're talking about in this podcast means it's backed by absolutely solid research.
Just a disclaimer here. Just because a lot of stuff we know or comes from research doesn't mean we are lawyers or doctors or qualified to give any advice in any format. Just think of all of this as education and entertainment. Yes, Harini. And I also think the other thing is it depends on who is watching it.
Yeah.
Because I have known people who have literally from the streets have read a book from a dustbin and their life changed. Now, can I say that book changed everybody's life? No. Has everybody who's read a particular book gotten results? No. And that's the difference between a promise where you are personally involved versus information that you put out to people.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you put out information in the format of books and videos, you're not necessarily promising or guaranteeing the outcome, but you're actually doing it because there is someone out there who could read that, who could hear that, and they are going to be able to do with it things that's going to surprise us.
Yeah.
How have you been finding yourself as an evaluation artist improving your predictive intelligence over these episodes as you continue to watch them? And me and our team are really curious about it, because I think as installation artists, Harini and I are so personalized one-on-one, and we are so used to every person we work with must get results. And but there's a difference between using a sniper and using a machine gun. Like And now, for the first time, we're actually doing content that we're just throwing across and seeing who catches it. Like, does it stick? Like, does it go and impact people? And not just know who sticks it, but how does it help them? And I think one of the things we always believe in is the unpredictability of it that actually makes the biggest difference. So I'm really curious, how does these episodes help you with predictive intelligence by watching them?
I would also encourage people to watch this with their families, because I think there's something in this for every age group. It's very easy to put this kind of content is something that's fascinating or deep only for adults. But I mean, we have seen right in our own programs how 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds pick up things sometimes far better than a lot of adults as well, right? And I think earlier you develop predictive intelligence, the earlier you develop insights and secrets and intuition about how to evolve people, you're always going to find yourself having an unfair advantage, and being the wise person, still having a lot of fun, still being super efficient or other superhuman efficient. And all of that is possible as they continue to evolve their evolution artistry. And like I said, anybody who's watching this podcast at any given point in time, I'm absolutely confident that it's going to solve something in their lives, and it's also very importantly putting their attention on some of the core things that they may have missed out on all along, like validation, for instance. It's not about how you feel at the present, but recognizing that every action, every decision that you're taking is having an impact on your trajectory. And I think if people can just become more aware of the consequences and recognize that it's not by randomness, because I don't think we're fooled by randomness, as you know. I mean, I read a book
There's
a while
actually
ago.
a book
There's
like
a book like that, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not so random after all. Like where one is in life at any given point of time. So yes, there may be all of the principalities and forces and a bunch of other things that may be at work, but there's also the whole core of the kind of decisions they've been making at any given point of time, the direct function of capability development. So for most people, wherever it is there in their lives right now, irrespective of their spiritual beliefs.
And what a lot of people don't realize, and I think this is very important for our audience, is our decisions are actually often biased by our capabilities.
Absolutely.
And like if someone has a lot of muscles and they are like feeling fit, they would prefer to walk somewhere. They might even jog, they might walk fast. And you take someone who's like really fat and has so much of pounding flesh, then they're most likely to, even for a short distance, try a different mode of transportation, even if it's a leisure travel, even if it's like the right temperature, right everything, and just leisure travel, and they have all the time. So a lot of times our decisions are actually based on our capabilities, and we do it intuitively. Most people don't get that, because sometimes when they don't pursue an opportunity, they start blaming themselves, but maybe deep down something knew that this is not the time for it. The opposite is also true. Sometimes people, it's the time for it, but people don't get it. The thing about predictive intelligence is it removes the guesswork out of this entire thing and helps you like be spot on every single time. And the times you're not spot on, it's still a win, because your predictive intelligence gets to the next level.
And I think one of the very core qualities, Antano, that
Yeah.
helps a person be on the track of continuing evolution is somewhere to just be humble, and also to recognize I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah. The topic of humbleness is actually a very important thing. The really humble people actually come across as arrogant many times. Because when most people talk about being humble, what they're saying is conforming to a system or compliance. And a lot of people confuse being compliant and a sense of false humility and using of certain phrases and language as humility. But in my opinion, humility has nothing to do with that. Humility is you have the choice to do it the other way. It doesn't matter if you be disrespectful to someone, it's not going to have consequences. And you still choose to behave kind and nice to them. A lot of times, what you see as humbleness is just confirmation. It's people complying, because if they don't, they're going to be pushed away by the society. If they don't act that way, they're going to be seen as like the person who isn't fitting or who is rude. And often, as educationists, as mentors, people have the necessity to be direct, to be firm. Humbleness is not having a means to know when your guess or your predictive intelligence is not accurate. It's not a personality trait, it's actually a strategy, a value, and it's something that comes from a position of strength. Most people who take on fake humility do it from actually a position of weakness. As humans, as a species, when it comes to leadership, we sense it intuitively. And that's why you see a lot of people who claim, who look humble and who behave humble, but they don't get anywhere because although on the surface level they're accepted, at a deeper level they are really rejected.
So many people are also used to certain anchors of certain rituals
Yeah.
or actions or certain body language or certain set protocol templates. When one does, it's perceived that they're humble, but real humility also leads to them becoming more educable.
One of the things that I always recommend people is, how do you know the deeper things of a person? Just because someone doesn't say thank you or please or doesn't smile doesn't mean they're not humble. You actually know in someone like that, in some cases, might be more humble than everybody else who's putting up a mask. So you know people by the fruit they produce. And if you take a good tree, you take a mango tree, it's going to give mango fruits. If you take a jackfruit tree, it's going to give jackfruit. It's not going to give a poisonous fruit. So you know people by the fruit they produce. Humility, real humility, has a fruit. The real fruit of humbleness is you're learning in ways others don't. Because the system in itself is not necessarily producing humble people. If you're out of the system, you're doing things differently from what the system is producing, then you're likely to learn faster, better, and tangentially at a different rate and speed and at a different dimension than what the rest of the world is learning.
How does one, Antano, recognize, because there's so many theories today, right? Like marketing is just also well packaged and also templated and has seems to have almost perfected that you do it this particular way and this particular sequence and you're likely to just get people to believe and things like that. When there's so many theories, there's so many methods of personal development and all of that, how does one recognize what's the right thing to do or how should it work for them?
My recommendation would be, how do we continue to validate everything, and can validation happen in shorter time frames than longer time frames? And I think that's part of the reason why you brought up humble as an important thing. Is the opposite of humble is being sure about your opinions, is being adamant about your beliefs, is really being stubborn about things that you think are true. If people overcome these things, they're more likely they're going to learn, and they're going to learn from their mistakes. So I don't think there is an alternative, Harini, to actually sampling things and saying, what does it do for you? I remember a long time ago, I wanted to learn something called as NLP modeling, and I was really obsessed with it. And then I went and asked Judith Delosier, does this NLP modeling really work? And she said, has it worked for you? At that point, I had to look at, has it worked for me, and what are things that I can do to actually make it work more? And it dropped that question forever because it worked for me. And then I realized what are the things that can make it work better for me. For people, they just have to try out. They have to try out. And I think we have to be okay with things not working. But my policy has always been, if it doesn't work, will it stop you? Will it break you from trying again? And when I used to learn martial arts, we used to have this principle that pain is okay, injury is not. If you cannot train the next day, then stop. If as long as you can come back to the field tomorrow, you can keep pushing. Pain is okay. If you're really interested in personal evolution or anything that you want to become an outlier at, you have to try. And if something doesn't work, know it fast enough, cut off the losses. One of the things that I find very interesting when I help traders, and we've helped a lot of traders make a lot of money, because trading is an emotional game. It's at some point everybody becomes good at trading. You can be like nobody and you can spend 2 years and you'll become good at trading. But what they can't be good at is controlling their emotions. Because when they make a wrong trade and the losses are tumbling down, the good traders cut the loss. The bad traders wait for luck, and the loss is multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, and they lose all the money. We have to try, and we have to be okay with the idea that sometimes some things that you invest your time and money is not going to work. But if you can find it fast enough, the returns when things actually work is going to be so significantly and exponentially larger that it doesn't matter that a few things wasted your money, wasted your time, wasted your resources.
In the quest of trying out a lot of things, I've sometimes seen people more messed up than they were before they started anything. So, what would be some of your words of caution, Atno? Because there has to be some wisdom around trying as well, right?
I would say look at the fruits. Now, I'm not obviously going to take any labels, but then, when someone came and asked me, they want to learn martial arts, and I don't know why they would ask me for learning martial arts. Should I go to this group or that group to learn martial arts? And they were talking to me about the techniques. Oh, these techniques are so advanced. They've, cut down this, they've done this, they're so fast, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, all that is great. But let's say, look at the community of people who practice this art and who practice that art. Who do you feel is more like you? Who do you think are developing? Because for me, martial art was never about just the physical movement. It's also a way of thinking. It's about clarity of mind. It's focus. If an art form is good, you actually see it in the practitioners. It was easy for him to make that decision because, he compared those two communities and he knew who was better, like him, in terms of values, in terms of just being interesting as a person and all of those things. So I would say that when you're actually going after a particular outcome and you're using a particular vehicle for certain outcomes, look at the people who are also driving that vehicle. And do you like them? If you don't and you don't want to be that person, maybe you want to try something else.
Do you resonate with the community and the person?
Yeah.
And where is the orientation of the community on the whole?
Yes.
Does it reinstill the values of some of the very core important things in life, like family?
I think there are some very, very key things that I would recommend for our audience here. Anything that takes you away from humans, from humanity, from family, in my opinion, is not a great thing. And you can see a lot of personal development things that focus on that separation, that focus on going away from other humans. And sometimes you may notice that they don't necessarily teach you that, but if you notice the community, they're away from people. Now, none of those things, in my opinion, are really, really ecological. Because at the end of the day, you want to have happy families. Because if you don't have happy families, you're going to have the crisis that's happening in the world right now. You're going to have countries collapsing. You don't have enough children. You have to figure out, for this country to survive, how many people have to migrate in. And you see that across almost half of the world, countries paying huge amounts for people to move in because they just don't have the population. We have had family systems for centuries. It's for a purpose, and you need to have happy families, and you need to have happy health, you need to have good health, you need to have all of these things together.
And that's why we talk about integrated life outcomes, right? We talk about their business, their health, their family and relationships, their personal genius. Are they evolving? Are they becoming happier? Are they getting to the next level? Are they developing more? Are they tapping into that genius? And their longevity, the impact that they create.
So if your ecosystem, or if the community of the practitioners of the vehicle that you're trying to follow to get to the next level, if it is into drugs, or if it's into the type of things that you don't like, or if they're not, you don't see happiness, you don't see family bonding amongst those people, then it's a red flag. And I would say stay away. Because it's not what they say, it's what happens. It doesn't matter an Ivy League or your next door training program. It's not that difficult to know what's happening in that ecosystem if you are really careful. And beyond that, I think you just have to try, you just have to sample and be willing to persist. Even if 1% of some of the things that you notice when people evolve and go to the next league. Even if 1% of that happens for most people, they'll cross the threshold. They'll cross that escape velocity, and
And
it's
until
worth
now,
it.
I didn't recognize how,
Yeah.
why is it so essential for someone? What's the unparalleled advantage of getting that kind of acceleration? Like, and that kind of acceleration is not just, it's not unecological. In fact, it's the opposite of that. It's everything joyful if you do it right, where you recognize, the whole set of capabilities and everything that you already have. And the predictive intelligence of just knowing what are some of those missing capabilities that if you develop now is significantly going to help you pivot and create fascinating life experiences for you. And you would have arrived at a point where you're ready for your next pivot, and you again have like the ground all ready, and then you just have to develop just the necessary set of capabilities, and then from that way you're literally going from strength to strength to strength to strength.
And out of one system, the rules and conformation to one system, to another, to another, to another, and finally you're like above that system.
That is fascinating, right?
It is. It is.
To me, this feels like real freedom.
It is.
Everybody wants freedom. Like most people are just running in this rut of time and money and struggling with relationships. And like you rightly said, I mean, I don't know if many people would want to hear this, but the fact is that many people are compromising and may not realize or recognize, or sometimes it could be ego, sometimes that could stop them from recognizing it. But it's true of most human beings that they are compromising on some aspects.
Like a drug for depression, a drug for obesity, a drug for, I don't know, thyroid, a drug for diabetes, drug to sleep, drug for anxiety. And for some people, it may not be a drug, it might be alcohol, it might be a cigarette, it might be
Or unhappiness from
or
family
unhappiness,
relationship,
or
helplessness,
it might be fight.
guilt.
There are so many people I've met. If you don't throw them into a battlefield, if they're not fighting, then they can't sleep because that's the only entertainment that they have. So it could be compromises come in so many
Yeah,
forms.
boredom.
And just because something has been accepted and it's been the way for a while, doesn't mean it has to continue. And the good news is, you might just be one capability away from getting to a whole new league. But can you find it? And can you develop it? I'm curious to know how some of you are benefiting from some of these episodes, and is it helping you develop predictive intelligence? Is it helping you improve your skills as an evolution artist from wherever you are to the next level? And is there something specific that you would like Harini and I to discuss about? Share and write in your comments below.
The ANH Podcast.